What if I told you that the reality you live in isn't as solid as it seems, that every detail of your daily life can change just by how you observe it? It sounds controversial, I know, but science has already proven it. The famous observer effect, revealed by quantum physics, shows that matter behaves differently when it is under the gaze of conscience. In other words, what you choose to see directly influences your reality. What almost no one talks about is that this isn't limited to labs. It's happening right now, in your life, in every thought that you feed, and in each emotion that you vibrate. When you look at lack, you reinforce scarcity. When you look at possibilities, you activate abundance, prosperity, and transformation. It's as if the universe were a mirror faithfully responding to your frequency interior. This knowledge goes against the common belief that we are victims of our circumstances. In fact, you have much more power than you realize. Your mind is a field of energy that interacts with everything around it, attracting, through resonance, experiences compatible with your mentality. And the more you understand this, the more you realize you can create an intentional life aligned with your greatest desires. Now, the question is, are you willing to take on this role of conscious creator? Because, starting today, as you delve into this quantum mystery, you will discover that there is no such thing as chance. There is only what you choose to observe and manifest. And that's where the journey begins. The universe holds secrets that quantum physics is gradually revealing. One of the most intriguing is the so-called observer effect, which shows how the mere presence of someone observing changes the outcome of an experiment. Isn't it curious to think that reality is not fixed, but shaped by conscience that interacts with it? It's as if each look were a silent force capable of reorganizing the energy around us. When a scientist turns his instruments on subatomic particles, he discovers that they do not behave the same way if there is no observation. This vibration responds to attention, as if the attention itself, reality, await an invisible command. The resonance between what is observed and who observes creates something new, almost like a dance between matter and mind. The fascinating thing is to realize that this is not just theory, but a bridge to understanding law of attraction. Imagine, for example, someone who constantly observes traffic chaos. This person doesn't realize it, but it activates a mental pattern that reinforces irritation, impatience, and a lack of control. Someone who observes the same scene with another person mentality sees an opportunity to listen to a good podcast, reflect, or even practice patience. The phenomenon is the same, but manifestation changes depending on the lens of observation. Here's the key: intention changes the game. If in science the particle waits for the gaze to define itself, in practical life, our thoughts and emotions, they work the same way. The way we choose to view a situation shapes not only our experience, but also what we attract back. And perhaps this is just the beginning of a larger journey, where the connection between mind and matter becomes even more evident. Quantum physics shows us something surprising. Conscience is not just a passive spectator, but an active agent influencing the matter. The simple act of looking, of directing attention, causes the particles to react, changing their way of manifesting themselves. This means that each look carries a charge of energy and intention, capable of changing what seemed immutable. It's as if the universe were a big stage, and our observation functioned like a spotlight that highlights what's about to appear. Who hasn't noticed that when you start paying attention to a particular type of car or color, they start popping up everywhere? It's no coincidence, but a practical example of how vibration of the mind selects and brings to light aspects of reality. This interaction creates an invisible bridge between what we think and what we see happening around us. When thoughts are aligned with emotions of confidence, enthusiasm, or gratitude, they resonate in high frequency, attracting abundance and prosperity. But when they are plunged into doubt or fear, their resonance changes and matter conforms to this pattern. It is the law of attraction operating at the most subtle level. Understanding this connection is like holding a treasure map, the key to realizing that there is no separation between mind and world. By changing the way we think and feel, we alter the course of events. And this opens the door to an even better understanding of where the daily practice of directing focus and attention comes in, because it is at this point that life begins to palpably transform. Now, bringing this quantum mystery into everyday life, it becomes clear that where you place focus and attention, energy is organized. A conscience acts as a magnet, shaping experiences and aligning circumstances according to frequency vibrated. It's like tuning a radio. If you choose a station, you'll only hear what's on that frequency. In the same way, your life responds to your vibration. Think about someone who decides to focus on their health. As they begin to learn more about nutrition, exercise, and well-being, reality begins to bring doctors, articles, invitations to classes, and even inspiring people along the way. It's not magic, it's law of attraction acting through resonance created by the intentional gaze. The external world reflects the internal world. The same goes for those seeking prosperity and abundance. If the mind only sees debts, bills, and difficulties, life organizes itself to reinforce this scarcity. But if the mentality changes and the focus shifts to opportunities, growth, and expansion, the realm of possibilities opens up. Small signs appear, business ventures emerge, unexpected doors open wide. What once seemed distant begins to manifest before our eyes. Applying this is simple, but it requires discipline. Start by choosing one positive aspect to observe every day. When you wake up, instead of complaining about work, observe the privilege of having a source of income. As you walk, notice the beauty of the trees, the sky, the movement of life. These exercises train the brain to register new things. Emotions, and dashed with that, attract different experiences. And it is precisely at this point that one of the biggest mistakes most people make lies. Here's a common trap. When someone looks at their own life through the filter of lack, they reinforce that same thing. Frequency. Observation scarcity creates more scarcity, because conscience connects to what's out of alignment. It's like being at a party and only seeing the food that's gone, ignoring the entire table still full of options. The wrong focus distorts their reality and limits to manifestation that could be abundant. This mistake happens in many areas. In love, for example, the person who complains about not having anyone special ends up making a vibration of lack. The universe, in response, sends more situations that confirm this lack. The same applies to finances. Those who mentally repeat, "I don't have money," strengthen the resonance of scarcity, even if opportunities for prosperity are right before your eyes. Quantum physics shows that energy is organized according to intention. If the gaze is fixed on what is missing, the material itself responds by reinforcing this absence. The cycle is cruel, but also liberating. From the moment the mentality changes, life begins to show signs of transformation. It's like changing the lens on a camera and noticing details that previously went unnoticed. Therefore, the challenge is not to deny the current reality, but to learn to interpret it differently. Instead of looking at your bank account and seeing a void, train your gaze to see there the opportunity to create something new, to expand. This shift in perception breaks old patterns and opens space for a more intentional vision. And that's precisely where the power of focused attention comes into play. When someone learns to look with intention, energy begins to reorganize itself into another frequency. It's not about seeing life naively, but about consciously choosing where to place your eyes and heart. Quantum physics has already shown that observation changes the trajectory of the particles, and the same happens with our experiences. When observing with positive expectation, their reality responds coherently. Imagine someone who starts the day saying, "Today I'm going to find something that makes me smile." It sounds simple, but that mentality creates filters that direct attention to small gestures, encounters, and situations that would otherwise go unnoticed. Conscience guided by intention becomes a powerful lens, capable of transforming an ordinary day into a stage of pleasant surprises. This is the kind of manifestation that arises when the eye is trained to find possibilities. The same happens with personal or professional projects. If you approach a challenge with the expectation that it will be difficult and exhausting, your body and mind align themselves with that vibration, reinforcing the weight of the task. But if the expectation is learning, growth, and even fun, the dissonance changes completely. The work may be the same, but the inner experience is different, lighter, more creative, and full of expansion. This power of intentional looking isn't just inspiration, it's daily practice. It means writing clear goals, visualizing results, feeling the emotions, connected to what we desire before it even happens. It's as if the universe were a mirror reflecting what we already vibrate inside. And when we understand this, the big question becomes how thoughts and attention can actually shape every experience. Your thoughts are like seeds that, when planted, begin to grow within the mind. When these seeds are watered with emotions strong, they create deep roots and manifest themselves in reality. The brain, in turn, records more intensely what is repeated frequently, creating filters that select what you will perceive in the external world. This is how conscience shapes experiences, choosing what to highlight on the stage of life. For example, someone who constantly thinks about professional growth opportunities ends up training their brain to recognize signals that would otherwise go unnoticed. A conversation at a coffee shop, an online course, even an unexpected invitation. This observation directed generates resonance with the prosperity, aligning circumstances according to the mentality. Those who insist on focusing on problems naturally reinforce the vibration of scarcity. It's curious to note that the brain doesn't distinguish so well between what's real and what's imagined. If you visualize a successful scenario, feeling the emotion as if it had already happened, you activate the same brain areas that would be activated in the real experience. This alters the energy of the body, changes posture, confidence, and even behaviors. The law of attraction manifests itself in this invisible but powerful process. Applying this is simpler than it seems. You can create the habit of writing down 3 positive things that happened every day, practice gratitude, or even use guided visualization techniques. These small gestures reprogram the brain to see the world more abundantly, and little by little, life transforms, showing how even our unconscious way of observing can trap us in cycles or free us. When someone lives like an unconscious observer, you end up stuck in a repetitive cycle. Those who only look at problems attract more problems, because conscience is tuned to this frequency. It's like always watching the same TV channel. The programs repeat and nothing new happens. This vibration constant creates areality, limited, with no room for expansion, abundance, or prosperity. A practical example: that person who's always complaining about work, they only notice the flaws, the difficult boss, the difficult colleagues. The result, each day brings new reasons to confirm their dissatisfaction. This unconscious focus feeds back into their own emotions, negative, and blocks any possibility of transformation. It's the domino effect of observation misdirected. The same goes for those who choose to look for solutions. This type of mentality opens the door to seeing hidden opportunities even in difficult times. Those who lose a job but decide to observe what can emerge from this situation soon find courses, contacts, new ideas, and even forgotten passions. Resonance changes because the perspective has changed, and the universe responds in kind, creating previously invisible paths. That's why living unconsciously is so dangerous. Without realizing it, a person gives away their inner power to automatic patterns. But when you wake up and decide to observe intentionally, you break the cycle and create new scenarios. And that's where mindful practice comes in, something that can be done every day in a simple and powerful way. The conscious observer knows that conscience is the key to shaping one's own reality. Therefore, he chooses daily what he will observe, feel, and nourish vibrationally. This intentional choice is not just a mental exercise. It is a focus training that changes the frequency and puts the person in tune with abundance, prosperity, and expansion. The difference between living on autopilot and living in this state is like swapping a noisy radio for clearer, engaging music. A simple practice is to start your day by defining 3 things to notice: beauty, opportunities, and connections. For example, when you leave your house, instead of noticing the heavy traffic, choose to notice the street architecture, an unexpected smile, or a creative idea that strikes you along the way. This kind of observation consciously creates new emotions and feeds their sonance with positive situations. Another technique is to use a focus notebook. In it, write down something you want to attract every day. It could be more clients, vibrant health, or harmonious relationships. Then take a few minutes to feel what it would be like to experience this already achieved. This exercise encourages the brain to create internal records, which ultimately filter the energy external to align with what was written. Little by little, the manifestation begins to appear, almost as if it were a coincidence. But it isn't. This habit of intentionally choosing what to observe strengthens the inner power and transforms everyday life into a laboratory of experiments. The world responds in proportion to the attention given, and the more aligned the perspective, the clearer the perception that life can be shaped. But what happens when someone decides to radically shift their focus and direct all their attention to possibilities instead of limitations? The big shift happens when a person decides to stop observing limitations and starts observing possibilities. Conscious change of season, the frequency rises and the energy begins to organize itself differently. What previously seemed like a blockage is now seen as an opportunity to transformation. It's like turning the camera to another angle. Suddenly, what was hidden is revealed clearly. A simple example: someone who always thinks, "I can't save money," starts to shift their focus to, "What smart ways can I create to generate income?" This small shift in mentality alters as emotions, awakens creativity, and activates their sonance with solutions. The same goes for relationships. Instead of just looking at your partner's flaws, you decide to see their qualities. The result: vibration changes, and the connection strengthens. This process is not just psychological, but profoundly quantum. Quantum physics shows that particles respond to observation, and in practical life it is no different. When we change our perspective, the very reality reorganizes. The inner power awakens, and with it, the abundance and top prosperity begin to manifest in unexpected ways. It's as if the universe is just waiting for this silent command from the heart. And when the focus remains on possibilities, life gains a dynamic of expansion, constant. Every challenge becomes an opportunity for growth. Every obstacle becomes a stepping stone. This is the true alchemy of conscious awareness, transmuting what seemed like a limit into creative force. And it is at this point that the final message of quantum awakening becomes inevitable. The truth is simple and powerful. You are not just an observer of life, but the creator of it. Reality that chooses to see. Each thought, each emotion, and every act of observation are brushes that draw the picture of your existence. Quantum physics and law of attraction remind us that there is no separation between what is thought and what is manifested. Everything vibrates, everything responds to frequency of yours conscience. When someone awakens to this knowledge, they realize that the inner power was always present, just dormant. Suddenly, what seemed like chance or luck turns out to be a direct result of intention. Energy ceases to be an abstract concept and becomes an instrument of transformation. That's the real magic, realizing that when you change inside, the outside changes too. This awakening doesn't require academic degrees or complex formulas, but rather the courage to take ownership of your own life. It's about choosing every day which resonances feed, what stories to tell yourself, and what mentalities sustain. At that moment, the manifestation and abundance and the prosperity ceases to be distant and becomes a natural consequence of living in line with expansion. The invitation is clear: to experience life through new eyes, with a lens that highlights opportunities rather than limitations. Because, ultimately, each person is the architect of their own journey, shaping their destiny based on what they choose to see, and it is precisely in this understanding that an irresistible call arises to continue exploring this quantum mystery. So tell me, how much longer will you allow your life to be guided by unconscious observations? How long will you look at limitations, reinforcing a frequency that does not bring either prosperity nor abundance? The truth is that the conscience has already given you the tools, and quantum physics has just confirmed what you observe, feel, and vibrate transforms into reality. The moment of transformations now. Imagine what could happen if, starting today, you started focusing on possibilities, solutions, and new opportunities. What kind of doors might open? What new connections might emerge? What kind of manifestation would you attract just by changing the way you look at the world? If each thought is a seed, why continue to plant fear, doubt, or scarcity? Why not choose to plant trust, joy, gratitude, and clear intentions? This is the calling of your inner power. Take on the role of creator and use the law of attraction consciously. You already have everything you need to change. You just need to decide to look differently. So are you ready to experience this expansion and experience a new resonance? If the answer is yes, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications, because here you'll continue learning how to use the power of conscious awareness to create a life of abundance, prosperity, and fulfillment. The next step is in your hands.